Hello and welcome to Second Watch, your direct line to the second mass. I am your host, Wil Wheaton. Tonight we are joined by actors Drew Roy, Sarah Carter, Maxim Knight, and executive producer Remi Aubuchon, who I hope can give us some insight into one of the most white-knuckle-inducing episodes we have ever seen. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Drew, holy crap, man. You are so amazing in this episode.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, like, it's, I was preparing my questions and I was doing work for this to be ready to come in today so that this wouldn't happen. I am so unbelievably blown away by your performance tonight. Wow. And there's a lot to cover, so let's get to maybe one of the most profoundly disturbing scenes that I think has been broadcast on television, maybe ever. Is Hal having the alien bug guys exorcised out of him. The CGI effects are great. I mean, they're great and they're disturbing, but the thing that made it so hard for me to watch is you just writhing and the rage and the fury and the pain and just, I really want to know what went into that for you when you were putting that whole thing together?
Oh man, you know, there was a huge part of it that was just fun to creep everybody out on set. So that was always exciting. But this was one of the last things that we shot from that episode, and it was almost a nice way to put that character away, to just let all that rage and whatnot that you're saying out, that you've kind of stored up in shooting this episode. But we had an amazing time doing it. I mean, just the logistics of it and all the things that we used to film that scene. They had the blowtorch, the nitrous oxide, and she was spraying that would get in your mouth while you're still trying to flail around. But the biggest thing was they had a real needle on set. You know, when they plunge it in to try to bring me back. Well, they wanted to get the shot of opening up a needle so that they could use it. I don't know if they used it or not. But to do that, they couldn't have a fake one, and I'm not quite sure why. So as I'm passed out, I've got to bank on the fact that Seychelles, who plays Lourdes, is doing this cowboy switch that they're talking about before she plunges it into my real heart. so that was always an interesting thing. While I'm playing dead, and not able to kind of keep an eye on it.
So a lot of those scenes of the evil kind of literally draining out of Hal's mouth, a lot of that is just close on you. Were you guys on set for that stuff when that was okay? So tell me what it's like to be there, to be so your coworker, your friend, your character's love interest. What happens to you when you're there?
This whole episode was horrifying. I mean, it was surprisingly difficult for me to play watching someone who I love on and off set go through so much pain. And the scene that Drew is describing with the blowtorch and the needle, I have a phobia to needles, so I was just as panicked as he was, and I was, you know, behind this glass window, and probably the most powerful episode of the season, I think.
I would agree with that. It was I cannot overstate how powerful your performance is in this. I mean, you were great last week, but oh my God, it's really intense.
Well, the whole thing was shot in one sequence the entire time. So he starts out in the scene, and he's, you know, we didn't pop in for any different little things. So I think that also helped keep the intensity going. So we didn't have to go in and then remove. That's why the needle thing was, it was there and it was there.
You happy with it?
Oh my God, it's the most awesome, craziest, scariest moment that I think we've done so far on Falling Skies. You know, it's hard to up it. We start, you know, start with eye worm.
It's hard to top the crawlies.
Go to
from
crawlies
last year.
Coming out of Brandon's mouth, but to see. I mean, it's kind of fun how when you're in a room and you're conscious of the fact that we've got to make something feel different. The one thing that we actually started with is we've seen eye worms extracted and we've seen things go into people, but what if the cure is actually worse in some ways than the malady itself? And I think working from there, you know, the fertile minds of David Weddle and Bradley Thompson, I think, came up with the nano hooty-dooties, and my God, it's incredible. But as I've said before, I think I said it last season with Brandon and the Crawleys, that we watch these scenes a lot without the VFX in them, and every time, just because of Drew's performance, the damn thing was so scary without them. When suddenly then they're in there, it's just incredible.
How long did it take you to recover?
I think we shot that on a Friday, so over the weekend
through the weekend?
because I didn't go out at all that weekend. Definitely didn't go out and have any fun.
Right, I believe you. You guys seem pretty close in real life. We've done a couple of these shows together. You guys seem to like each other. What is it like for you as an actor, as actors? I know that we set aside our personal lives and we inhabit our characters and we do these things, but Hal's pretty crappy to Maggie in this episode, and you've got to sit there and process everything that's going on with him after you have said, look, I bail on relationships, but I'm not doing that in this circumstance. Does it make those days extra tense, or is it more fun because you get to really do things, you get to reach out of reality to make these characters happen? What's that like on the set?
That's a good question. Yeah, there was more to work with this season, for sure. I think Drew and I just love acting together, so we were excited that they gave our characters an even bigger challenge. So yeah, it was nothing but a great thing. This episode was kind of cool because I got to be protective of little Matt, and I kind of used that relationship to keep my heart open, and there was a lot of fear in this relationship.
Do you think Maggie's going to be able to honor her commitment to stay with Hal, considering that whole taken over by an alien implant sort of thing?
Gets
Is
tough.
that going to create some trust issues?
It gets tough.
Maxim, Matt, it was great. The scenes between you guys are lovely. So of course I'm not going to talk about that. I want to talk about Matt and Pope. Pope seems to be sort of warming up to Matt, and seems to be Matt seems to be the only Mason that he's like, I like you, Mason. And I wonder why you think that is.
That's because I like him.
Yeah?
Yeah. Over this season and over the first season, not so much in the second season. I stayed far away from him. But we've really become kind of a team. We're going out, we're doing things together, so, we got each other's back.
Yeah.
And after tonight's episode, he's the only Mason not to punch Pope in the face.
Is that true?
Connor just joined the club.
You also raise an interesting point. Matt is the only Mason who, so far, has not somehow been violated by alien technology. Right? So Ben was harnessed, and we saw what happened to Hal, and Tom had the eye worm. What do you think?
Well, yet being
Season
the operative
4.
word, of course.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I think that there's, I think what's been fun about Matt's journey this season is that in a weird way, he has been affected by all of that sort of stuff. Greg Beeman and I have often talked about the idea of Matt being if generations from, or a couple generations from now, it would be Matt's character that would be telling young kids as he's 85 years old the whole story of what happened with the second mass. And in many ways, I know, exactly.
That's a great, wow, look at that. Old man Maxim just came out. That was
we sometimes
terrific.
joke
Right?
about it as a budget saving measure of, if only we had a voiceover of old Matt saying, and thus it was that my father beat 3 million aliens. But we succumbed to not doing that. No. So
I have just now begun working on fan fiction where that actually happens.
So I think I think you've identified a couple times that Matt is the character that seems to, that we reflect off of a lot. And in that way, we see what he sees and how he reacts to his brothers going through turmoil and stuff. And he goes through turmoil indirectly.
A lot of the most recent turmoil is the result of Hal being sort of possessed and then remotely controlled by Karen. So even though we don't see her in this episode, her handiwork is like touching everything and everyone. So now that link that she had to Hal is broken.
Yes.
So what's going to happen?
We've been assuming up until now that Hal is the mole, but and he could very well have been, and he might still. So at least we have been able to have broken that. But we know through the history of our show that Karen wants Hal, and is willing to go to any lengths to get him. So I think we should assume that it's not over yet. By any means, and I think you can see that with Maggie. I think you can see that Maggie is relieved that this has all come to the head that it's come to, and that the outcome is positive at this point. But I think she knows in the back of her head that something else is coming her way.
I wonder, Sarah, that Karen has this odd pull on Hal. And there is, in certain relationships, you have this sense of like having to somehow replace or get over whoever the previous boyfriend or girlfriend was. And there has been this sense that I've gotten of Maggie kind of competing with Karen in these really weird ways. And now we find out that for all of this season, she's literally been inside his head. So what does that do to Maggie?
Well, it's not easy. I think Maggie understood from the beginning that Karen was taken away from Hal, and that they were in love. The first episode Maggie appears, she actually saves Karen. As in love as she is with Hal, she's also always open to the bigger picture. And we'll see what happens. You guys will find out what happens. But at this point, right now? I can't tell you right now.
Everyone at home would not have a problem with that.
At this point, I think she's in one of her kind of standing back and waiting for the truth to
Because she's clearly endured some pretty bad relationships.
Yeah.
And
she doesn't feel at all entitled, is what I want to say. I mean, she expects the worst in life, and so she'll react when it's time to react.
I think it's very telling that she doesn't go off with the Masons at the end of this episode. And while we're not exactly sure what the conversation was between Hal and Maggie, an understanding has come off that Maggie needs to take some time to process what's going on, and Hal's not saying no to that.
So, Maggie spinoff just on a walkabout?
Right.
All right. I'm really looking forward to it.
That'll be on Third Watch.
That'll be great. That is all the time we have tonight. So thanks a lot for coming out and spending some time with us today. Thank you again for an amazing performance in this episode, and that you guys are all just fantastic. Next week, we will have some very special guest actors here, along with executive producer Greg Beeman. In the meantime, check out TNTdrama.com for more on Falling Skies, including behind-the-scenes action and all kinds of trivia. Until next time, keep the resistance strong.